This is the HPT.
Sit right down, put on your poker face. You with the big dogs now. Better bring your best game. Talk trash all you want. To me, it's all the same. You won't leave with much when you come in second place. And I'm the one with the stack showing 7 to the jack. Gon' cry to your mama, cause I'm sending you back. I'll be the last man standing with the money in my hand. I'll be the last man standing with the money in my hand. Last man standing with the money in my hand. I'll be the last man standing with the money in my hand.
Hello everyone and welcome to the HPT. Hundreds of poker players have traveled to St. Louis, Missouri to the River City Casino and Hotel to try their hand at the huge prize pool and that coveted HPT title. I'm Maria Ho and I'm joined by my guest co-host, angel investor, entrepreneur, and high-stakes poker player, Jason CALACANIS.
Thanks for having me. I'm a huge fan.
We're so glad to have you here. And you know, everybody knows that you kind of got your hand in a lot of different things, but people might not know that you actually play quite a bit of high-stakes poker.
Yeah, I live in Los Angeles, and in Los Angeles we have a ton of high-stakes games multiple times a week. PLO, Texas Hold'em, and even Chinese poker is getting pretty popular too.
I'm sure you've got a lot of good stories from those home games. But first, let's get to the action here at the River City Casino and Hotel. River City has been narrowed down to the Elite 9 and there's over $111,000 awaiting the winner. Each of the remaining players is looking to be the last person standing, but the truth is only one can walk away as our next HPT champion. All these players have outlasted hundreds of others to get to their seat underneath the lights.
Now these players have logged a lot of hours to get where they are, and now they can finally see the light at the end of the tunnel. Now everyone has a pretty good idea of what they're doing, so it's going to take more than just ABC Poker to take this one down. Let's take a look at the money at stake, the starting chip counts, and get right to the action.
For our next HPT champion, a 6-figure score waiting at the top, over $111,000 for our first place finisher today. But you know what? Going home with 9th place money isn't bad either. Just over $11,000 for our 9th place finisher.
Here are this week's starting chip counts.
We have Daryl Ronconi here in the top spot with just over 2.2 million, about 24% of the chips in play, as you could see. Michael Hahn follows behind him with just under 2 million. Roger Campbell has a healthy stack as well with over 1.5 million. And we got a couple shorties here that are trying to grind it out. Keith Brody, Parminder Singh, and Harris Delic.
Ready to go? All right, so blinds are at 15 and 30K, and the ante is 4K. So first to act is our Vietnam vet, Terry Ring.
And we've seen Terry at an HPT final table before. Really glad to see him back here again.
And the button, Chris, is going to take a shot at it, it looks like.
And I don't really care what 2 cards you have on the button. If it's folded to you and you've got some chips, you got to open the pot, I think. And that's what he's going to do with King 5 offsuit, raising it to $65,000.
King 10 just calls. Should he raise there?
You know, I think that just at the beginning of a final table, you're still feeling out your players, kind of seeing where they're at. So I think it's okay for King 10 to call, but definitely later on, King 10's hand worthy of a raise.
And so the flop comes down, Ace 10 Queen, 2 clubs, 1 spade.
And Keith has connected with the flop with bottom pair of 10s. Chris doesn't have much. He has a gut shot straight draw to Broadway, which Keith also has.
Yeah, this could be a chop, right? We get a jack on the turn, or
yeah, there's a lot of possibilities for this to turn into a chop, but for now, I think Chris just wants to continue his aggression from being the pre-flop lead to also continuing with the C-bet here.
So we have a king of spades on the turn, and this gets dangerous, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think now both players have a substantial piece of this board, and they're both kind of thinking, all right, well, I might stick around for another bet, but they both actually decide to check the turn.
And the river is a jack of clubs, and this gives everybody's playing the board, or there could be a flush.
All in.
Right, and I think Keith is moving all in because he has the king of clubs in his hand, so he has the blocker to the nut flush. So he feels like he can move all in here and maybe hope that Chris will fold out a chop here.
Just shy of 500.
And Chris is right to give this some pause and some thought. I mean, he doesn't exactly have the nuts on this board. He doesn't have clubs, and he's just not sure if he wants to call for a chop or actually call and lose.
And a fold by Chris. So the winner
And he
of
shows
the
it.
hand
I mean, I guess Keith thinks right there that he did bluff Chris off the chop, which he did, but you know, it wasn't actually that hard of a decision for Chris. I think in poker you realize very quickly if you call for a chop, that's a losing play.
I mean, that's a bit of a tell if you slam your cards down like that, right? Like, this is an amateur.
You're a little proud.
Why would you give information, right? Is that the worst thing you can do as an amateur?
I personally feel very strongly that you don't want to give people more information in poker than they're already getting. So, you know, I like to keep my cards close to the vest, for sure.
All right, so Daryl is going to raise to 65K with ace-10. And looks like Harris is going all in, and he has the pocket jacks. That's got to make Daryl feel good, right?
I mean, you know, Harris, he's got about 10 big blinds here coming into this hand, so no wonder he's going to 3-bet shove with jacks, and Daryl's ace-10 is obviously going to shrivel up a lot here. I just am not sure if Harris has enough fold equity. Daryl opened this pot, so he might be committed to just make this call, even though he knows that he has to be pretty far behind Harris's shoving range.
Terry Ring in the small blind is going to fold, but he's going to sigh and fold.
And then Parminder behind him in the big blind is also going to fold. So now action's back to Daryl, and he's got a couple things to think about here. He does have 3 outs, but we know that because we can see the cards.
He's got a ton of chips, though. I mean, he should snap this, right?
I think that he's getting 2-1 to make this call, so I believe that mathematically it is the right call to make. You just don't really know what your opponent's holding, though.
And he knows he's behind.
He does.
He suspects, yeah.
But that's kind of what happens when you're on a short stack like Harris is. When you go with a hand, you have to realize you're probably going to get called. So you know your tournament life is going to be at risk.
All right, let's see the flop here. Deuce in the window. Ace and 7. Is that the case? So he hits one of his 3 outs.
And now Daryl has pulled way ahead here, putting Harris in a really bad spot. And if Harris doesn't hit a jack on the turn or the river, he will become our 9th place finisher.
What has he got, 8% now to hit it with the 2 cards coming? 7 or 8?
Yeah, it's not really looking good for Harris. I don't envy his position at all. And the turn is the 4 of spades. And now that really hurts Harris because the jack of spades no longer helps him. He is down to 1 out and 1 out only going into the river, and that's not a good spot.
Let's go ahead and see.
He looks sick. He just looks sick.
And he should feel sick. The river is the 4 of clubs, and Harris is going to be the first person eliminated from this final table. He's going to go home with a decent payday, though, just over $11,000, but nobody wants to be the first person to get knocked out at a final table.
But in fairness, he had 3% of the chips. So
yeah, the writing's kind of on the wall when you're the short stack, unfortunately.
he's going to be staring at the ceiling tonight.
With that elimination, it's time to take another quick commercial break. But before we do, I want to thank the entire staff here at the River City Casino. The dealer, the floor personnel, as well as the security. Everybody's done a great job, and it's always a pleasure to be back here in St. Louis, Missouri at the River City Casino. Don't go too far. More exciting HPT action is coming up.
Welcome back to the HPT. I'm Maria Ho, and with me is Jason CALACANIS. Over $110,000 waiting up top for one of these players. Let's find out who it's going to be. Michael Hahn with $1.9 million.
So Daryl's doing great. His stack swing, $476K. And so in the poker hospital, Parminder, Chris, and Roger all down $160 to $175K. So blinds continuing at 15 and 30K and an ante of 4K. First act in his hand, Chris. And he's going to fold. Michael's thinking. The glasses are on. And Raisy Daisy to 60K.
Michael has king, queen suited, and, you know, in my book, that's definitely good enough to come in for a raise.
All right, a couple more folds. And here we go to Trevor on the button. He folds.
I'm sitting here thinking, wow, I can't believe this is actually the third final table I've made in the last year. I'm happy if I go home ninth. I've had a great time, and HPT is a wonderful venue to play, and I've had fun, and I'm just going to do the best I can.
So the flop, 9, 7, 10, 2 diamonds, and Roger's looking pretty good here.
He has a gut shot straight draw, but Michael has a gut shot for the higher straight. So I think it just comes down to Michael wanting to continue to be aggressive here as he continuation bets.
And Roger just snap calls there because he picked up that draw, don't you think?
I think Roger feels decent about his hand. The ace on the turn is the card that Roger doesn't want to see because that's kind of more of the hand he's putting Michael on.
Right.
Is over cards.
Right. So this is Michael's chance to steal here.
Absolutely. And Michael sees that as a great opportunity, and he will bet again on the turn, betting 130,000 this time.
And Roger's now picked up a flush draw as well, but it's such a baby flush that he can't even consider that very valid.
Yeah, you just never know when your 6-high flush draw is good here, so it's hard for him to make this call just based on the flush draw alone.
But he does call, and now what if he hits the flush? What does he do then?
And that's what I'm saying. I don't think I want to ever play a hand of poker where I'm not sure if I hit the card I think I want, that I don't even know if it's good or not.
And a king of diamonds come. He does hit it, so now he's sick to his stomach.
Or he's reaching for chips thinking, hey, I got a flush. Roger, for whatever reason, feels like this flush that he has is good enough to lead into Michael now. And, Michael's really in a tough spot because, as you can see, he just has a pair of kings on this coordinated of a board.
And Michael folds it. And Roger shows... Did he show the 6 of diamonds or did he show the club?
She showed the 6 of diamonds. So he was I had it.
What is it with this table that everybody feels the need to confirm for people that they weren't bluffing?
Yeah, I mean, I think that hopefully they're setting this up for some big bluffs later because they want to present this image of I'm not bluffing. But if they don't, then I think that's a big opportunity that's going to pass them by.
Does that work with a pro? Like showing, I had the nuts. The pro is thinking you're trying to set them up, right?
Absolutely. When people show me cards, I don't take that into any consideration in my later hands with them.
Okay, blinds are up to 20-40, and the ante's now 5.
Now we're on to Chris in seat 4, and he's going to raise it up to 100,000 with pocket deuces.
And now Michael has the 7s.
And I think now what Michael is thinking about is, do I 3-bet this hand? Chris raised kind of from late position. 7s on the button is a perfect hand to 3-bet with, except when Keith wakes up with jacks behind you.
I think the toughest player at this table is myself. The only one that'll really beat me is myself. If I make mistakes, I'm going to lose.
Keith has moved all in here with pocket jacks. Chris is folding. And now Michael has a real decision to make here because he's actually got a pretty good size stack, yeah?
Yeah, Michael's got a pretty decent stack and a pretty good hand, and I think it's just a matter of whether he thinks he's flipping against Keith's range or whether Keith has him dominated, as we can see.
And does he want to play for a third of his stack?
Yeah, these are definitely all considerations that has to be running through Michael's mind right now. And a lot of the times in these situations, you got to think about how this person has been playing up until now.
Yeah.
And, are they playing a lot of hands? Do you think that they're the kind of person that would shove as more of a bluff or more for value? And that's when you really have to decide, are you willing to risk a lot of your stack to find out?
And Michael seems like a real considered player. And frankly, Keith seems like a bit of a knucklehead here. I mean, he slapped down that first hand. I'm calling him here because I think that he is just on a shove fest now. He shoved before with the ace high. Not that we saw it, but he does seem like a bit of a wild player.
Yeah, and I think that's why Michael is going to make this call. I think a lot of your past history and table dynamic dictates how other people should be playing against you. So not surprised to see Michael make this call, but unfortunately Keith has it this time. And Michael is in really bad shape here.
Hold up one time.
For me, it's kind of a bummer if Keith goes out right now because I would really love to see him have the big stack because he's kind of entertaining.
Yeah, and with the big stack, I'm sure his play would just get a lot crazier. And wow, behind that jack in the window is a 7 and an ace. Set over set, but it's not going to be any good for Michael this time to hit a set.
Quads are good.
Quads would be good, but that one-outers are hard to come by in poker. Keith is looking in really good shape to double up here with his jacks.
Why does Keith look so distraught right now? I mean,
I guess, I don't know. He thinks the one-out's coming, maybe. He's standing up. By this point, I would sit back down if I were Keith, for sure.
I think Michael's the guy who's supposed to be standing right now, not eating the apple. Must be so great. And the King of Hearts comes.
And Keith is not going to sit back down just yet. He's going to text somebody, hey,
I doubled up. And it looks like he's dancing to a little bit of Skrillex, actually, at this moment.
So, good for Keith. Well, good for you. Keith is going to stick around for a couple more hands at least.
And he doubled up, so, I mean...
So now he definitely has quite a healthy stack.
I have to say,
There was no
Michael
hearts
really
anywhere
has
either.
great
It was
kill
like,
control, and he's eating that apple just like he didn't lose a huge pot right now.
Well, Keith is going to double up, and I guess we'll come back for more of Michael eating his apple right after this.
Okay.
Welcome back to the HPT. We're at the River City Casino and Hotel in St. Louis, Missouri. There's over $110,000 waiting up top for one of these players. Really? Sponsored by Apple. Daryl Ronconi is still the chip leader with just $3 million, but Roger Campbell is definitely trying to catch him with $2.2 million. Keith Brody and Michael Hahn are both in the Millionaires Club. They're feeling pretty comfortable with their stack, but our short stacks, Chris and Parminder, have a lot of work to do with 7 and 6 big blinds respectively.
And the swings, quite dramatic. Roger up $848K, and Keith is now up $664K. All right, blinds continuing. 20 and 40K, 5K ante, 9 seat, first to go.
Trevor Renner looks down at Ace King of Hearts. Huge hand to have, especially when you have a 20 big blind stack. I'm sure he's going to raise and get it in if he's faced with any resistance at all here.
Yeah, nice to get that under the gun, too.
Yeah, absolutely.
A lot of action after you.
A lot of opportunities for people to wake up with a hand that they want to call with, and Roger feels like Ace-5 suited is good enough.
Yeah, avoid the spades for Trevor. The bro, hot off his big win, and he is folding on the button. We'll never know what that hand is.
And back to the blinds now. Parminder, wow, his stack is just whittling away, and look at that. I mean, he's...
Yeah, what is he doing calling there with ace-4? Like, there was a raise under the gun. Isn't that a signal?
Yeah, and I feel like he's kind of getting a little bit desperate. He's got 6 big blinds. He's really hoping for a lot of 4s on the flop.
And, sure enough, the flop comes Jack 4, 8, Parminder with a 61% advantage.
But unfortunately for him, he has no idea that bottom pair is actually ahead here. And I feel like that's the problem with getting a bit of your stack in here with ace-4 is you flop a floor, you can't really do much with it. You're pretty much just going to fold here to Trevor's continuation bet, I would think.
Now Roger folds. So now is Parminder just going to shove it all in here with bottom pair? What do we think?
I think no. I'm going to take the don't because it's very hard for him to know that he does indeed have the best hand. But at the same time, it's like you see what's in the middle, you see what you have back, and you feel like at some point you're going to have to take your shot, and you might need to get lucky to do it, even if you are behind. So I think it's just up to Parminder if he feels gambly right now.
And he's getting whittled away. I mean, at some point, he must take a stand.
Absolutely. And for some people, this might be the time and opportunity to do it, but it's one of those things, the longer somebody takes, I think they're talking themselves out of it at this point. Oh, no.
And there's the all-in.
Parminder's going to surprise me and move all in, and he's very happy to find that he's ahead because he wasn't sure until the cards were flipped over where he was at.
And he's got his safety blanket, so that's always good. It's like looks like Linus over there from Charlie Brown.
So his lucky charm is giving him an ace on the turn, so he is still ahead, but that does open up a few possibilities for Trevor. Obviously a king or a jack or an 8 would actually give Trevor the better hand with the better kicker.
The old counterfeit.
Yep. And the river is the 7 of hearts, and it doesn't counterfeit Parminder's aces and 4s, and he's going to double up, have a sigh of relief, see another hand, live another day.
Diet Coke. Diet, yeah.
Who's the best player for you right now at the table, based on what we've seen?
That's a really great question, and I've got to say, even with Keith's kind of erraticness, there's something to be said about being tough to play against, and you just never know what Keith has. Sometimes he's got jacks, sometimes he's got queen eye, but you're never really going to know. So I would just say he's probably the toughest to play against at this point.
Looks like Terry's going to play a hand, our Vietnam vet.
And Terry's been in this position before, and I think he's fairly comfortable knowing how to navigate through a final table. There's definitely different stages of a final table, even though you're at the end part of the game.
Daryl's going to call with queen 10 suited. And here comes Roger with queen 9 off.
You know, now it's become a limp fest. Earlier it was a fold fest, and now I think everyone's following suit with Terry's limp of ace-jack, and we see all these hands just coming in trying to flop huge.
And now Chris is like, how do I not fold here? Maybe is Chris going to make a move here and make it 240 or something? He's got a decent-sized stack. He could get cute, right?
You know, when I see a lot of limps, I'm always inclined to look for the spot where I can raise and maybe take down all the dead money in the middle, and I think that's what Michael's thinking about here.
Yeah, you got a 240,000 K pot, and I'm just, if I'm him, I'm concerned about Terry because he hasn't played a lot of hands. He seems like an older, savvy poker player.
Yeah, and it's just about whether he thinks Terry's limping with a really strong hand or limping with a weak hand that's going to fold to raise. And Michael actually has ace-queen, so I think that's a better than enough hand to raise a bunch of limpers with. You want to protect the value of ace-queen here.
Now, Terry seems so savvy, he could let go of ace-jack. But he calls.
Yeah, and I guess what Terry was doing by limping there was opening himself up to the possibility of being able to call a raise here. But I think if I were Terry, I would have just liked to see him come in with a raise with ace-jack. I think you kind of know better where you stand against the other hands. But now it looks like Daryl is going to call as well with queen 10 suited. And that's kind of what happens a lot is you get into these multi-way pots. Once you start limping, you feel like you got a little bit invested. You have your babies out there. You want to protect them. You want to go after it.
So 6 and 7 of diamonds and a 3 of spades, 2 diamonds.
So Michael hasn't connected with this flop at all, but neither has Terry and Daryl here. But unfortunately for Michael, I guess he feels like against 2 other opponents and out of position, he doesn't want to continuation bet this.
And the savvy Terry just goes all in. You could see him thinking that Michael thinks he has a pair.
Yeah, and this is the thing, you know, Terry does have the ace of diamonds in his hand, but it's only 165,000 more to call. So I feel like that was the big misstep on Terry's part is maybe he should have just moved it all in pre-flop because now he's going to get Michael to call him here and Terry's going to find out that he's actually behind.
Ace of diamonds, jack of spades. It's ace queen versus ace jack.
We need a 6 and a 5 or 3.
There are chop outs.
Diamonds could come to play here. A little runner flush could work.
7.
Diamonds would be Terry's best friend right about now.
And then it's just jacks. Now, if Michael loses his hand, is he going to start eating the apple again? I think we get a side bet going.
I think we need to have an apple count.
Oh, the jack's there, so the apple's definitely coming out.
I believe that when the river falls, Michael will be biting into his apple.
I think that's his tilt control.
Yeah, Terry got really lucky there to hit a 3-outer with the jack on the turn, and now Michael's looking for a 3-outer of his own. Queen and only a queen on the river.
And it's a 4 of hearts, and Michael is looking sick.
I mean, when you're at a final table and you double 2 people up in consecutive hands, you're not feeling great about the situation you're in now.
This would be a run bet clinic.
I don't see the apple, so I think he's just going to find some tilt control elsewhere.
Time to step aside for a quick commercial break, but when we come back, more exciting final table action. You're watching the HPT.
Welcome back to the HPT. We're at the River City Casino and Hotel in St. Louis, Missouri. This is Jason CALACANIS. I'm Maria Ho. Let's get right back to the action. We have a new chip leader now, Roger Campbell, with $2.6 million. But Daryl didn't fall too far from Grace. He's just behind him with $2.4 million. Michael, Chris, Parminder, and Trevor all have somewhat short stacks, some a little shorter than others, of course. Trevor's only got 7 big blinds.
He's going to be shoving.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have a lot of choice with 7 big blinds. You got to look down at a hand that's halfway decent, go with it, pray that you could double up.
All right, coming back, we are still at 20 and 40K big blinds with a 5K ante.
And the action is going to start on Trevor Renner with those 7 big blinds. Ace-8 is definitely decent.
Yeah, that's a good shove hand with 7 big blinds, and he might just pick up the blinds here, right?
Yeah, he still has a little bit of fold equity for people that don't really have anything invested. But if anybody wakes up with just anything, really, he's probably going to get called by the blinds.
Well, here comes Terry, and I wonder if this is going to be a call or if he's going to give him a little bit of protection here with the raise.
Yeah, I think anytime somebody shoves for such a short stack, if you have something pretty good, you should isolate that short stack and you should make sure to keep it heads up.
Oh, buddy, I gotta call you.
Terry doesn't isolate, but he does have a good hand with 10s here. So now Trevor's looking for an ace. Otherwise, he is not going to be too happy about having to be our 8th place finisher.
All right, Justin, let's go ahead and see the flop, please.
All right, flop comes down. 10, 3, queen, Terry hits the set, and
Sorry,
Trevor
bud.
gets up, even though he could hit
I
runner
didn't
runner
want
here.
you to be the one.
It's all right.
Yeah, Trevor does have a small runner-runner possibility, but he pretty much knows that the writing's on the wall here. The turn is the 8 of diamonds, and Trevor is officially drawing dead.
And a meaningless 6 comes out on the river.
So
Good job,
Trevor
Trevor.
knew after the turn he would be eliminated in 8th place. He's going to go
see you in
home with
Kansas
just
City.
over 13,000, which is definitely not bad for his work here today.
And now we're down to 7.
You know, other people at the table when someone's all in, they're kind of rooting for that person to be knocked out because that's a pay jump, that's laddering up. You know, you know that there's only going to be one winner here. So
Although, if I'm them, I'm a little worried about Terry, because I feel Terry's a very strong player who hasn't played a lot of hands. I'm looking for him to get more active now that his stack's getting bigger.
I think we could expect a lot from Terry, especially since he's been here before.
So, blinds are 25 and 50K and ante 5K. So the price of poker just went up.
Every time you know those blinds are going up, it just shrivels your stack up just that much more, and people need to realize they need to start getting more aggressive because you don't want the blinds to eat you up, and you don't want to end up with a short stack where you're just down to one move.
So now Parminder has rockets. He's got the pocket aces, which he's been waiting for, and he raises to 100K. Should he have just shoved there?
You know, Parminder has 7 big blinds, so it's going to raise some red flags to people why he's not moving in. I would think, wow, this person probably has a really big hand. But at the same time, if you move all in, you might not get called. So even though it's kind of, you know, a face-up play with your stack, you still want to try to get some action. And he is going to get it. Daryl has ace-king behind him and re-raises.
So Michael's going to 4-bet to 585 with the pocket snowman.
And I think this is just not a great spot for Michael to 4-bet. I think he sees that Parminder has a short stack and he thinks maybe Daryl's trying to isolate him with not a great hand, but I still would probably let the 8s go. And, you know, Parminder Hollywoods a bit, calls.
Yeah, checks his cards.
Right.
Are they still aces?
Yeah, and then Daryl now decides he's going to commit Michael's stack as well, moving all in with ace-king, and of course Michael's going to call it
He's
off.
pot committed.
Absolutely.
So now we could go down to 5 players here, maybe 6 or 5 players. So let's look at for Parminder, because he could triple up here, yeah?
Yeah, it's not very often that you can triple up here and have aces and be in such a great spot. And Daryl and Michael for the side pot are essentially flipping against each other. But Daryl has both of them covered, so it's Parminder and Michael's life that's on the line.
And here we go with the flop. 7, Jack, King, all spades. So we have flush possibilities here. And obviously Daryl hit the king.
So, you know, Parminder was in a great spot to begin with, and he's in actually a better spot now. He has the ace of spades in his hand. He has the nut flush draw, along with the best pair so far. Ace is still ahead. Michael is looking really slim to win, and Daryl as well.
All right, so the turn comes, and it's a 7 of hearts, no spade.
So now if Daryl wants to score the double knockout here, he's going to need to hit a king on the river. And Michael, if he wants to win the side pot and stay in this tournament, he's going to need to hit the 8.
All right, well, here's the river. And it comes down to 9 of diamonds. Parminder's going to win.
Parminder's going to win the main pot here. Daryl's going to eliminate Michael for the side pot. So unfortunately for Michael, he is going to be our 7th place finisher. And it is interesting to note that if Parminder were to be knocked out on this hand, the person with the shorter stack would be the 7th place finisher, and then Michael could have actually notched up a spot and gotten a little more money, but unfortunately for him, that did not work out this way.
And interestingly, I thought Michael was going to be, you know, one of our final 2 or 3 players here. He seemed like the most serious.
I don't think I love that shove with the 8s. I think there are better opportunities, especially when you're at the final table. But he decided to take it, and it just didn't work out this time.
Another elimination here at this HPT final table. When we come back from this quick commercial break, we will resume play here in St. Louis, Missouri at the River City Casino. You're watching the HPT.
Welcome back to the HPT. We're at the River City Casino and Hotel in St. Louis, Missouri. This part is brought to you by Apples.
There's $100,000 at stake. Let's get back to the action. Okay.
And Daryl's reclaimed his top spot now, back in the lead with just under $4 million. Roger, Keith, and Terry all have healthy stacks of over $1 million. But Chris Cornell and Parminder Singh are kind of looking for a good spot to double up here. Otherwise, they will not make it much further.
Yeah, look at the stack swings. Darryl and Roger going in different directions. One up 1.4 and one down a million.
There's been a lot of action at this table and a lot of big pots being played, so it's not surprising to see such big swings between their stacks.
All right, so blinds are 25 and 50K with a 5K ante, and the action is on our friend Parminder. He's got a 7 under the gun, and he folds it.
And you know, I think six-handed, I would like to see people starting to raise, even in early position with hands like that. You got to take some spots.
Roger gets ace-9 of diamonds, and he's going to raise it to 110K.
Call.
And Keith just calls here with ace-queen. You never know what Keith is going to do. I think a lot of times I would say 3-bet there with ace-queen, but
he's a bit of an enigma.
Yeah, for sure. He's surprising us all. We never know what he's going to do next.
And now he's added the glasses to the repertoire. I think that kind of completes the outfit.
Terry goes ahead and defends the blind.
And here's our flop. We got Jack, Deuce, 10, Rainbow.
So Terry's actually connected here with top pair.
Keith checks. Terry's going for chips.
My prediction is Trevor, Darryl, and Roger are going to have to fight for second, third, and fourth. So.
Who's going to get first?
Oh, right here.
Nice bet.
And Terry decides to lead into the pre-flop raiser, who was Roger, and bets 160,000. He's going to get Roger to fold ace high here.
And Keith makes another insane move. He's raising all in with a gut shot straight draw and ace high.
Yeah, I think Keith thinks, 2 overcards to the board, gut shot to Broadway. I mean, now all I got to do is hopefully Terry doesn't want to call and I could take this down. And if he does, I got some outs. I think that's what he's thinking here.
And Terry's giving this the proper thought process because he thinks, hey, maybe he's got king jack, ace jack, queen jack, something.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of hands that actually do legitimately have Terry beat that would play their hand this way. So I don't blame Terry at all for thinking about folding. I'm just not really sure when you're up against an opponent like Keith, you don't know what he has. So he could have it, but he also has shown that he doesn't have to have it either.
And he's going to call it.
And Terry's going to be a little bit sticky in this situation, not going to give up this hand that easily.
Queen or an ace, king, baby.
And now Keith is looking for an ace, a queen, or a king.
I'll take a king, queen, or an ace.
And actually, Terry
king,
called for his
queen on the
tournament
turn,
life,
baby.
so, good on Terry here.
One time.
Yeah, I get the sense Terry's a very good player.
Terry is not afraid to put the chips in when he thinks he's ahead, that's for sure.
Ace, king, queen. Come on, Justin, one time. No clubs,
Keith
no
correctly
backdoor
calling
clubs,
out his
none of
outs.
The turn is the 5 of spades, so that's not one of the outs that Keith was calling for.
There's a proverbial brick on the turn.
So now he's down to the river, otherwise Terry's going to get a nice little double up here.
This is pretty significant hand.
The river's the jack of hearts, and that just strengthens Terry's hand here to trip jacks. He's going to sit back down, collect his chips.
Wouldn't get away from Jack 7 there, huh?
And then Keith has got to, give him a hard time about not getting away from Jack 7. Really, top pair versus the maniac. I think you might want to give the old man a little break there.
Yeah,
It wasn't the worst call in the world.
No, definitely not. And I think that, and Terry didn't beat him in the pot. He gave it some thought, and he decided, I think I have the best hand, and you can't ever really blame somebody for coming to that conclusion. This is my favorite segment, A Poker Life with Doyle Brunson, telling us a couple of his stories.
Junior was from Austin, Texas. Really a good player, a good guy. He was uneducated. He was, I think, 4th or 5th grade. He dropped out of school. He was very poor, and I think he didn't have any shoes until he was 10 years old or something. And he got in a poker game as a young man, and his opponents, not only his shoes but all of his clothes, and he became a really good player, but he got on drugs and went crazy and overdosed. You know, really a tragedy. I mean, people wonder why I hate drugs so much. It's because I lost so many friends to them.
Time to step aside for a quick commercial break, but before we do, I want to remind you to check out our website. It's www.hptpoker.com. Pick an event, and who knows, maybe you'll be playing for the life-changing cash. Time to take a quick commercial. We'll be right back. You're watching the HPT.
Welcome back. We're at the River City Casino in St. Louis, Missouri, and I'm Jason CALACANIS, and this is Poker Pro Maria Hunt.
Let's get right back to the action. You know, it looks like Roger and Daryl keep switching spots here. This time, Roger's on top with over $3 million. Daryl's still looking really comfortable. Terry following really close behind Daryl with just under $2 million. And now Keith has joined Chris and Parminder in the short stack club a little bit. They have all got 20 big blinds or less.
And you see the swings there. Roger up $1.5 million. Daryl down a whopping $1.74 million. All right, so blinds, still 25 and 50K. We've been on this blind level for a while. 5K ante, and the action is on.
Roger Campbell, he decides to fold. You know, with this newly designed structure by our friend Daniel Negreanu, you know, we end up playing a little bit more poker, getting a little bit more of these extra blind levels in there.
And here we go. Parminder has ace-king off, and he's going to raise it to 150. Now, what is Daryl doing here with 9-4 of diamonds calling 100K? Is he protecting the blinds there?
Yeah, I think that sometimes when the small blind raises into your big blind, you're like, well, he has 2 random cards. I'm just going to defend here with a wide range of hands.
Yeah, we got king, 10, 7, 2 diamonds. So Parminder has picked up the top pair with top kicker, and Daryl now has a really great flush draw.
I think Parminder's checking it over to Daryl to maybe go for the check raise here. He knows he has the best hand here.
I feel pretty good. I've been playing with everybody throughout the tournament, so I have a pretty good understanding of how they play, and no real tells or anything, but I feel pretty good about how they play and how I'm going to play against them.
Yeah, and then
all
he
in and a call.
Yep, and this is exactly how the hand's going to play out. You're blind versus blind. You both got a piece of it. Parminder doesn't have all that many chips, so, you know, once Daryl bets with his flush draw, he's pretty much committed to calling.
And now Parminder always puts on the jacket. So he's always like, I think that's like a little superstition there. He's like, if I pretend I'm leaving, then I can come back and take the jacket off and feel good about it. It's like a humble thing. It's a humble brag.
But what is worse than someone who walks away from the table because they're pretty sure they're going to lose and then they hit their miracle card? You're just like, ugh.
There was an overbid. I mean, you know.
Okay, 9 of clubs on the turn.
That helps Daryl a little bit. Now a 9 or a 4 or a diamond on the river will actually eliminate Parminder. Parminder's looking to fade quite a few outs.
And our river card is a Jack of Hearts. No help for Daryl.
And, you know, Parminder gets some wind in his sails, it looks like, from doubling up again at this final table.
He's taking the jacket off, and we can only wonder if the vest is coming off next. It is. So he's coming in for the long term now. He's going to get comfortable with his new double up.
Well, that was definitely a decent-sized pot that went Parminder's way.
And where does that put Parminder? Is he in the top half now, almost?
I feel like the stack sizes can just shift so quickly. You know, you double through one person, and the roles are reversed, essentially.
All right, well, the blinds are up. We're at 30 and 60K with a 10K ante. So now there's serious money in the pot now each time.
Yeah, and that's also why I advocate, you know, opening a wider range and taking the dead money. It's a lot of blinds and antes that's going in there every time, and if you add that to your stack little by little, you're going to put yourself in a good position.
Roger's going to call the 60K with 8-9 suited. Here's Terry. Looks like he's raising it to 180K with aces.
Yeah, and, you know, Terry sees Roger limping in, and, you know, Terry decides he doesn't really want to take this pot 3 ways, so he's not going to also limp as well. He's just going to raise, hopefully isolate with Roger, go heads up here. And I believe if Roger limps with a hand like 9-8 suited, he's probably going to call this raise.
180.
Yeah, he's got a huge stack. 120. It's kind of de minimis.
Yeah, I think Roger's just hoping he's going to flop huge, a flush or a straight. Otherwise, I hope Roger's going to be able to get away from this if he flops a 9 or 8. Because usually, you know, with a hand like this, it gets you in a lot of trouble if you don't flop a bigger hand than just a pair.
All right, well, let's see what happens on the flop here. And there's the 9, 4, 2, so he's got top pair. And mid-kicker, this could be disastrous for Roger. Let's see. Terry's reaching for chips. He's going to bet 180K. Let's see what Roger does here.
180 is bet by Terry.
And I think Roger's going to at least call one. He does have the backdoor club draw along with it. I just don't want to see him get, really out of line here and go for a raise or something like that. Because you still, Terry's been fairly tight, as we've seen. So you still want to play it a little bit more cautiously against someone like Terry.
All right, the turn card's a 6 of diamonds, also known as a brick.
Yeah, and Terry's got to feel pretty good about his aces. This run out is not really that dangerous for his hand at all, and it's just about extracting value in his mind from Roger.
Now that's a big bet, 475K, so this is going to put Roger to the test.
Yeah, and I don't know if I like the fact that Terry feels the need to bet so big here. I think he could have bet a little bit less and gotten Roger to call, but like you said, this might make Roger think about it for a second, but...
I call.
Roger's a quick actor here. I think he's just going to call him all the way down. What's going to happen here on the river if he doesn't hit and improve his hand?
Yeah, and if a scary card doesn't come for Roger's pair of 9s, I think he is going to call the river, and pretty quickly. I think he feels committed and somewhat stubborn with this hand at this point.
And it's another brick, 2 of hearts, and Terry checks it.
9s.
I think the problem is you rarely get dealt aces. You rarely get dealt such big hands in poker. You really have to get maximum value, and I don't feel like Terry did that here. The river is really, for all intents and purposes, a brick. And I think he should have bet again because it looked like Roger was willing to make the call.
Yeah, that was a strange move there. He very quickly checked. It was almost like he had made that decision before the river had actually come. All right, we'll be back with 6 players to go at the River City Casino in St. Louis, Missouri.
Welcome back to the HPT here in St. Louis, Missouri at the River City Casino. Only one player can be our new HPT champion and go home with just over $111,000. 6 players remain. Let's head back into the poker room and pick up the action.
So for the first time this final table, Terry Ring is our new chip leader with $2.7 million. Roger Campbell is still trying to stay in one of the top spots with $2.3 million. And as you can see, Chris Cornell, Keith Brody still looking to find a hand to shove with.
Yeah, Terry's my man. I'm going with the Vietnam vet. He's got a huge swing of 780 up. Roger taking an equal size swing down. And Parminda with a nice little get earlier with 630K up. All right, so the blinds are still 30 and 60K with a 10K ante. And Roger's got pocket 7s. He's raising to 125.
And action's folded over to Terry.
Parminda, he just can't wait to call this. He plays out of turn.
And Terry's just going to make the smooth call here with 9s. And Parminder with 8s follows suit.
Now, is he in a tournament like this? He's required to call because he played out of turn?
Yes. When you play out of turn, your call stands as long as the action hasn't changed before you. So if Terry decides that he wants to 3-bet, though, then you can take your bet back.
And in a home game, probably not.
Probably whatever goes.
Yeah, you just apologize and we all move on. Okay, so the flop is ace, queen, 8 clubs, and 2 of our players have clubs.
So that's quite an interesting flop. As you can see, Parminder has flopped a set of 8s, but Roger, who's going to continuation bet here with his 7 of clubs, knowing that, his pair of 7's probably no good at this point with this board against 2 other opponents, but maybe if he hits his club, it'll be good.
Terry's very disciplined. He's folding it here, even though he's probably going to have a pretty high flush.
Yeah, I think that Terry is right to fold in that spot. He doesn't really know what Parminder's going to do behind him. And, of course, against 2 opponents, you look at a 9 high flush draw, you're okay to let it go. You didn't really invest all that much in the pot to begin with.
It's good discipline. Okay, and our turn comes a 7 of diamonds. And now we have 2 sets.
Yeah, so now Roger's actually turned a set, and I feel like Roger just feels really comfortable about his hand. Parminder just called with a set of 8s because that's not really the kind of board you want to raise your set with. So at this point, it's just about what comes on the river and if this pot is going to get any bigger than it already is.
And we've got a brick 2 of diamonds.
Call if you got the flush, you got
Parminder's all in.
Put silver pocket 7s for a set.
And that's the brick that Parminder was looking for on the river before he moved all in. He didn't want to see a club, and he didn't want to put himself in a position where, you know, somebody could see the turn and the river and hit a flush on him. So
yeah, I had a club. My club, my seven was a club. I had a set of 7s. He had a set of 8s.
he waited for the board to run out clean for the flush draw, and he actually ended up getting a call because Roger did turn a set of 7s.
And Parminder with the slamming slow roll, taking his time before smacking his set onto the felt. A classy move if there ever was one. As a poker pro, it's been great to hear your insights into this play. What do you think about what we've seen so far?
Well, you know, I think that there's been a lot of interesting play, and like you mentioned, I feel like maybe the lights and all that pressure of being at a TV table really got to these players. I would have liked to see them do a couple things differently, but we also did see, you know, a couple of good moves at the right time as well. Do you think you've got what it takes to play under the bright lights of the HPT final table? If so, then log on to hptpoker.com to find an event near you. I'm Maria Ho for Fred Bevel, James Larson, and guest host Jason CALACANIS. Thank you, and come back soon.